What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Bleed, and we're here. It's the recap. We got UFC 258 just wrapped up. The press conference is over. Wow, what a card. We're going to go over the main event. We got some other things we're going to talk about later on in the show. Thank you guys for joining us. And if you're new, hit that subscribe. We got it going on, recapping every UFC event. No matter what time this thing wraps up, man, we keep it going. Let me throw it to my man, Al Mack. What is going on, Al?
Yeah, man. It's 3 a.m., so it's gonna be an interesting show. But yeah, it was a crazy night and not the best gambling night for me. And I feel like I'm on a bit of a cold streak, and I should just like take my own advice. And yeah, but it is what it is. Amazing performance by Kamaru Usman, and I'm excited to get into it and talk about. There's a bunch of things to talk about in this sneaky good card that a lot of people were down on, but it was pretty entertaining, man.
Yeah, no doubt, definitely an entertaining card. Yeah, man. You know, some of these pay-per-views lately kind of been getting some criticism, but didn't necessarily have the name value, but it definitely delivered on action, man. A really fun fight. Why don't you hit us with those betting trends before we get into it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Even with one of the biggest underdogs of the year, I think the biggest underdog of the year cashing, the favorite still made money tonight, which has been rare. I think it's the first time all year out of the first 5 events that the favorite made money, 8-2 for plus 2.33 units. But then the story still remains. The fight goes the distance has just been killing it. Just under 60% of the fights so far, 34 or 57 fights so far this year have gone the distance, and the over is cashing at a 70% rate for 9.5 units. So this will eventually balance out, and it's just interesting to track because it's actually the underdogs have been cashing even 36% win rate, but the underdog is still profited so far this year. So the big dogs are winning, and it's been interesting to track. Just it's just so random. Switching from Abu Dhabi to Vegas with the no fans. It's crazy to track, man.
Yeah, you know what? It would actually be interesting if we had 2 different data sets, because really, as it stands right now in the UFC, we only have 2 different venues holding events. So it would be cool almost to check out those same numbers comparatively, Abu Dhabi to Las Vegas, right? That could be cool too. But yeah, man, definitely some wild stuff. UFC, this MMA, one of the wildest sports. Underdogs are live consistently, and what do you know, man? The biggest dog of the night cashes. Let's get into this card, though. Kicking off the main event, we had Julian Marquez with a comeback. I'm going to call it comeback, I think, of the year to this point, man. Unless I'm forgetting a bigger and better comeback. Gets the win, finishes Maki Pitolo with the Anaconda choke. 4 minutes and 17 seconds into the 3rd round. My goodness, man. On my scorecard, Julian Marquez was down in this fight 2 rounds to none. Had to go into that 3rd round looking to finish the fight, or at worst 10-8 Maki Pitolo for a draw. I mean, he really had to go for broke. Ended up hitting that beautiful Anaconda choke. We saw him threaten a multitude of front chokes, right? A multitude of, neck attacks, as Maki Pitolo just showed us an angle that, honestly, I don't think anyone in the world outside of someone who probably directly dealt with Maki Pitolo in his fight camp leading up to this fight, there was nobody, my man Al, nobody who said Maki Pitolo was going to come into this fight and wrestle fuck Julian Marquez. I mean, this was unbelievable, dude. The game plan Maki came in here with it just goes to show, man, you can analyze, you can look into everything. You can watch every bit of tape out there on a guy, and they go out there and just do the unthinkable, which is Maki Pitolo going out there and having not just using a wrestling game plan, but having tremendous success as the smaller man going out there, repeatedly taking him down, showing an ability. If you had told anyone going into this fight just looking at, Julian Marquez, the success he's had with submissions, the fact he's the bigger man, the fact that we think he's the stronger man, you'd think that'd just be a horrendous game plan for Maki Pitolo, but no, he goes in there, absolutely impresses me in a loss. But man, Maki Pitolo, a guy that I talked about, a guy that I preached about, very inconsistent. Sure enough, man, a fight he's winning the entire time, gets caught in a choke, ends up tapping. Al, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, really good cornering work from James Krause. I think turned the tide going into that third round, and he just woke up his fighter basically. And I think so. Maki Pitolo now has 4 straight losses, but honestly, like they put him in this spot on this card for a reason. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him back with the UFC. I don't think they're going to get rid of this kid. Like he got better somehow in his 4th straight loss, which is, he was like a -150 favorite going into that third round, and just a heartbreaking loss for him. That was a great fight. And
absolutely, man. Perfect fight to kick off the main card. And Al, man, you bring up that live number, man. Oh, I actually looked at that, dude, and I said to myself, man, he's down 2 rounds. He's gonna have to find the finish. In retrospect, I obviously wish I would have done it because he was getting so close on so many of those chokes that it almost felt inevitable he was going to hit one at some point, but didn't do it. But wow, hats off to the people who had the balls, the cojones to get in some live action on Julian Marquez. Ended up being a phenomenal spot. Go ahead, Al. I think I kind of jumped in there on you.
No, it was just like I said, James Krause. I feel like James Krause was a big factor.
He's a great coach.
Yeah, waking up his fighter, and Maki Pitolo. I feel like he needs just like a change of scenery or something, because he's good, man. I don't know what it is. I think he is UFC level, but he's just one of those like tweeners where
absolutely,
if he went down to any other lower ranking like LFA or anything like that, Ryzen even, he would be destroying people. So
for sure. Listen, a guy we're going to talk about later tonight, Kelvin Gastelum. He's a lot like Kelvin Gastelum, I think. You look at the guy and you go, dude, you should be fighting a division down. But, I just think it's like a genetic thing. I think it's just kind of like a personal chemistry type thing. Some people just do not respond well to not fueling their body to its full potential. They don't respond well to that dehydration of a weight cut. And, I just think Maki Pitolo is one of those guys. I think, he's probably going to stick around at 185, but you look at him and you go, dude, you'd be a big, strong welterweight. But man, even when you see like some of the pre-fight photos leading up to the fight when they show Maki Pitolo, a lot of that's older stuff when he's at 170 and the guy just looks unhealthy. You know what I mean? I hate to say it, but like, he lost the fight. He came up short yet again, but I'm honestly impressed with the performance of Maki Pitolo to go out there and also show that new wrinkle in his game. It kind of opens up like a new path to victory for him, and it makes him a much more complete fighter. He's not this KO or bust guy. He can actually go out there, and as long as he doesn't get choked in the future, could be a guy that wins some fights. Julian Marquez, man, almost 3 years off. Impressive win, but at the same time, he didn't necessarily blow me out of the water those first 2 rounds. Looked very flat, looked very ring rust. I talked about it on Friday, man. Serious ring rust. He definitely suffered from it. Took him a long time to really get started. And really didn't have a whole lot of dominant moments in the fight. Landed some pretty good punches at some points, but up until, he found the choke, just didn't really have any control, any flow of the fight. A little bit surprising. This is a fight that I said I felt like I wanted to bet on Julian Marquez, but there were just so many red flags, the injury, the layoff. I couldn't do it. Boy, I tell you what, that was a no bet that I was feeling real happy about after those first 2 rounds. Sure enough, though, he still comes through and cashes. But honestly, man, that's one of those bets that even had I placed the bet I wanted to place and it ended up winning, I don't sweat it too much. That's it's one of those bets that you would end up pulling through with the miracle win, but you'd in retrospect go, that just wasn't a good bet. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Al, did you have any action on this one?
Yeah, unfortunately, I bet Marquez by decision. So I was
Oh
basically
no, man!
I was just
Tragic.
middled. I was just middled, right? Because
Sure.
it would have had to have taken a bad decision for him to have gotten the nod,
Right.
right?
Yeah, you know what? That's
So,
a good point, Al. You were dead in the water anyway after round two, honestly. So
but
not as bad as it seems, being as you were 45 seconds away from the decision, right? As bad as the judges are, I didn't see him getting that one wrong. So
it was just it was a great fight, but I wish I had nothing on it because
absolutely.
yeah.
It is what it was, and honestly, man, the way Pitolo came out there strategically, like there was no way anyone in the world was getting a read on that. So it is what it is, man. Probably a good one to steer clear from. All right, so I tell you what, though, you want to talk about utter domination? My man, Ricky Simone gets the unanimous decision over a always very dangerous Brian Kelleher. This was a catchweight fight. Was this catchweight or was this at 145? Was this at 140 or 145?
This is at one. It was basically two bantamweights fighting at 145.
Right, you're right. Yeah. It was the fight earlier in the night that they did at 140. So this one did go off at 145, which it definitely adds a different element to it. But Ricky Simone, man, this guy. First off, I just got to talk about it. I did have him a little parlay action that we'll talk about that I paired up in the main event. Worked out pretty good. But yeah, man, Ricky Simone. I felt like it was Ricky Simone's fight to lose more than it was Kelleher's fight to win. Ricky Simone was either going to have to eat one of those boom Kelleher left hooks and get put to sleep, or he was going to have to get caught up in that Brian Kelleher, guillotine that he's famous for. And honestly, both had their chances. Kelleher hit him with a few good shots, and he definitely had a few guillotine attempts. But Simone was smart enough in the head positioning on the takedowns. Never really gave Kelleher a chance to really lock the hands under the chin. And even when Kelleher had some pretty good shots at it later in the fight, they were so wet and sweaty. And, it was just easy for him to pop that head out and never really had much danger to the guillotine. So Ricky Simone, man, just goes out there. I talk about it week in, week out, every time. I'm always backing Ricky Simone, man, unless we're talking about one of the absolute upper echelon of the division. This guy just goes out there and has the most bankable bet winning style in the sport. Ricky Simone, excellent gas tank, excellent pacing, excellent cardio, banks on the takedowns, position over submission, puts in the work with the ground and pound. What is there not to love about a bet on Ricky Simone? I mean, don't get me wrong, dude got deadened by Uriah Faber a couple years back, an old Uriah Faber. Had some questionable fights. I honestly think he lost the fight to Merab Dvalishvili. But at the same time, man, Ricky Simone, love the guy, cashes a first leg for me. We need to see this guy get in there with the upper echelon, the top 10, top 5s, and see where Ricky Simone really stands right now, because the sky's the limit for this kid. Al, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, he's in such a weird spot because I feel like he's so underrated. I think he's now 11-2 in his last 13 fights going back to LFA. So I mean, eventually they gotta get behind this guy, right? Like, eventually they got to do something to they got to do something. Eventually they're going to feed him to the wrong guy and he's going to get beat. So they need to start backing this train. And it's interesting, like you say, this is now the 4th win by decision in the UFC for him, and he's becoming a master at this. He's becoming a master at he's just an entertaining point fighter, and it's sky's the limit, exactly. And I bet against him, and it was a bad move. And I bet the under. It was one of those things where I just thought, short notice, so many things, so many things leading up to this. I thought that Kelleher was kind of getting a little bit disrespected, but it was evident as soon as the fight started that was a bad bet, and the blood didn't help.
Yeah. You know what? And I think the blood was a big factor. You know what? I want to say 90 seconds into the fight, Ricky Simone lands some really heavy ground and pound, cuts the eyebrow of Kelleher. And you could tell immediately the blood, especially the position he was in, as soon as he got cut, that blood's flowing, I mean, like directly into his tear ducts. You know what I mean? Like flowing right into the corner of his eye. Probably dealt with vision issues, probably, just the fact that you're cut. It's very demeaning. It's very, it scores tremendously with the judges. And to go in there and take that kind of damage that early really set the tone for the fight. Kelleher really just never got his game off. But you know what? There's levels to this game, and there's a level or two between where Brian Kelleher and Ricky Simone stand right now. Is there anything you want to throw on this one before we move on?
No, just next time that Ricky Simone fights, I'll definitely make the money back that I had on Kelleher here, because what he showed me is very actionable, because he's going to be, if he continues to be underrated going up against, the thing about it is he's versatile, right? He could fight at bantamweight, he can fight at featherweight. If he's going to move, between two divisions here, this guy is going to be very actionable, because he lives on the West Coast. He can make a short notice fight. So if we can catch this guy as an underdog and sometime in 2021, I think he'll be a really good guy to keep our eye on here.
Absolutely, man. He's been an absolute money train for me these last couple years, and I'm going to keep that train rolling down the tracks, baby. All right, we are up to Kelvin Gastelum, Ian Heinisch, my man Kelvin Gastelum. Man, unanimous decision. Just a really good, clean. I mean, I feel like a fairly dominant performance. I was honestly confused at the end of the fight. Ian Heinisch acted like he had a legit shot to win this fight. I didn't see it, man. I thought Kelvin Gastelum won at 30-27. I thought it was pretty apparent. Kelvin Gastelum, a guy, first off, I just got to tell you this, Al. Your boy don't get a Kelvin Gastelum fight wrong. I mean, it's been years since I've been on the wrong side of a Kelvin Gastelum pick, whether he wins or whether he loses, because this is a guy that I've been fading from Adesanya on. And, he was a fairly heavy favorite in the Till fight. I bet Darren Till plus 200, cashed that easily. Jack Hermanson I backed, a 1-minute heel hook. That was a plus money underdog. But this spot, I felt like, Kelvin has, kind of been stepping his way down the ladder in talent. And I felt like Ian Heinisch was back at that level where this is a very winnable fight for Kelvin Gastelum. And it was, he was the better striker. He was the better wrestler. He was the better grappler. He was the better strategist. He just went out there and showed it's not over for me in a very solid win over a very, very game, a very highly skilled guy, Ian Heinisch, a guy who, has probably one of the most well-rounded dudes. What does Ian Heinisch do good? Everything, man. He's very, very good. The commentary talked about how big Ian Heinisch is. I hate to see the criticism of Joe Rogan as of late, but dude, Ian Heinisch is not a big middleweight. Okay, we got some monster middleweights out there, and Ian Heinisch is not one of them. I mean, Kelvin kind of manhandled the dude because he's not much bigger than Kelvin, and Kelvin is the small. Well, I was about to say the smallest middleweight. Totally forgot about Duran Wynn, who looks like little brother with dwarfism. No, man, Kelvin Gastelum goes out there, great performance, very solid, almost no mistakes, really. What'd you think of this one, Al?
The thing was it was one of those things where if you were betting on the Gastelum that we know prior to, I would say, the Till fight, this was going to be an easy fight. But there was all of these intangible factors that I think that why the market perceived that there was value on Heinisch, and I even thought there was too.
A lot of love for Heinisch this week. A lot of love for Heinisch, and I understand it, man. Like I said, I was a person that's backed a lot of underdogs, against Gastelum, but
same. but he hasn't looked this good since the Izzy fight. Like the thing about him is like what makes him even able to compete against these big guys is that he has the best for a small guy. He has the best head movement I think I've ever seen in the sport. Like he's so hard to hit, right? And he's such a good defensive striker. Like he knows how to, that's why the fight against Izzy, I feel like he learned a lot from it, but he wasn't able to show it because Till kind of just sucked the life out of him with his like super draw you in and counter on you type style. And and then the Hermansson fight was just a bad matchup, and he got lazy and he got caught. He needs to the thing about him is he needs to select his opponents right, and I think he isn't done. It's crazy. He's had 18 fights in the UFC. He's had so many fights in the UFC that you can't even calculate how many times he's gone over the total, because in 2013, they didn't even do over-unders for these fights. It was just like fight reaches round 1 or round 2, round 3, etc. So, he's a veteran and he's a young guy. So, I feel like the sky's the limit for him. And he's another one of those. He's like Ricky Simone. He's really good at when he gets ahead in a fight, he knows how to close it out where he doesn't have to go for the finish. He can just coast, and he's a smart fighter. He's got really good fight IQ. He's he's a great fighter, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him because sky's the limit. Like Calvin Gastelum versus Paulo Costa. That would be wild.
You know what though? They are training partners, so I don't know if that one goes down. But yeah, man. Well, also too, you got to think. I think Costa coming off the title shot. I still think there's a pretty big gap in the rankings as far as that. But man, that would be a good fight. I tell you what though, man, Gastelum, he's just got hands of lightning. That's the real advantage. He's got lightweight speed at middleweight. So, like the size is the disadvantage, but the fact that he is a smaller, faster guy, he's used that angle, basically to the peak of that's ability. You know what I mean? I mean, this is the guy who gave Israel Adesanya his toughest fight. I mean, put a lot of damage on Israel Adesanya, who I've said it before, I'll say it again, is the greatest striker in UFC history. So, I mean, Kelvin Gastelum at his best on his night is just a tough out for anybody, regardless of the physical attributes he does lack. So, and like I said, man, I'm going to stop talking about it. I feel like I bring it up every time. I'd love to see the dude get buckled down, peak nutrition, peak physicality, and make a run at welterweight, but it just doesn't seem to be in the cards. And, he kind of blew all his chances there. Dana White forced him up to middleweight. Whatever. He's had success at middleweight, so let's keep him at middleweight. Is there anything you want to talk about on this one, Al, before we move on?
I feel like there's just more fan-friendly fights for him at middleweight. Like I said about like the Costa fight, or even he's fought a lot of guys, but he's
for sure.
I feel like if he moved to welterweight, we would just see him lose to like Wonder Boy. Like that would be a crazy fight, though. Actually, now that I mention it,
dude, that would be a fucking phenomenal fight. Dude.
Yeah, but yeah, he would never. I don't think he'll ever make 170 again.
I don't either. I mean, look at the guy physically at 185. He's not even in like peak shape. So ask him to go another 15 down. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and he has like those crazy genes, like you said. Like I think he's Mexican and Brazilian Portuguese. So like he's I think he's Mexican and maybe like European Portuguese. But anyway, he's got like that Brendan Moreno type, like just that those genes where he's just you have to kill him to lose a fight, like pretty much in the Adesanya fight,
totally
right. And it's just about his motivation. So it'll be interesting to see. I would like, hopefully we get to see more of him in 2021.
Absolutely, man. He's a guy that I think probably kind of a head case type situation. Where is he at right now mentally? Looks to be in a very, very sharp place. And there was a lot to love about that performance against Ian Heinisch. So very, very happy to see Kelvin Gastelum get back on track. This was a fight that I only had in my Hail Mary parlay. I didn't have any legit solid action on it. I just felt like I couldn't bet on Gastelum at that price on a 3-fight losing streak against a guy that I think is very good. I mean, Ian Heinisch is a guy that I really don't get an Ian Heinisch fight wrong, honestly. Every time I back Heinisch, which I have as a dog, he's cashed out. Every time I go bet against Ian Heinisch, he loses. So both guys, absolute money trains for me, whether I back him or whether I don't. It was one of those fights that I just kind of let pass by me. Like I said, other than the Hail Mary shot on it, so the Hail Mary sprinkle. But yeah, man, let's move on. Kelvin Gastelum, I think he's going to let's get him a big fight, man. Let's give him one fight. Let's give him a step up. Let's give him a top 15er. Let's get him back on the horse here, I think. Yeah. All right, co-main event time. Oh man, Al, this is probably the biggest bummer of the night for me. But you know what? Some surprising things. We learned some stuff in this fight. Let's try to make some money on it in the future. But Alexa Grasso gets the unanimous decision win over Maycee Barber. Yeah, man, I had an underdog bet. I had a plus money bet here on Maycee Barber. Let's just talk about the fight first. Alexa Grasso goes out there, shows us she's the better striker. I think everybody knew that. I think everybody knew for the time that they were going to go toe-to-toe, Alexa Grasso was going to be outpointing, outpacing, and just putting up the better numbers as far as output in general, and probably landing the more cohesive shots.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly how it played out. Was Maycee Barber going to land the bigger, nastier shots? Yeah, and that's definitely how it played out, albeit far fewer and far between, right? But here's where things got surprising to me, man. It was the strength Alexa Grasso showed. That, to me, was the whole selling point on Maycee Barber in this fight. I felt like Maycee Barber was going to go out there, push Grasso up against the cage, which she did. I'll give her credit. That was part of the game plan. She did it. What I didn't foresee was Grasso's ability to reverse position, put Barber up against the cage, show that she is really just right on par with the strength of Maycee Barber. I thought Barber would have much more success working takedowns, being able to hold her down. If anything, Grasso was the one, coming out on top in those 50-50 grappling scenarios. And sure enough, just landed the better strikes. Maycee Barber just never really got her game off until the third round. And I think it's pretty clear Maycee Barber won the third round. Ended up hitting her with some really good shots, hurting her. But man, questionable fight IQ from Maycee Barber. Lands some very good shots from distance. What does she do? Goes and pushes her up against the cage when she should have been separating, staying at striking distance, and taking advantage of a hurt Alexa Grasso, who was kind of dazed, rocked, and stationary up against the cage, Maycee Barber kind of had a chance, I think, late in this fight to pull out that much-needed win because I think the judges got it right. And on my scorecards, I had Grasso winning the first 2 rounds. I had Barber winning the third. I think it was all 3 judges unanimously, 29-28 Grasso. Grasso clearly wins the first. The second got a little bit closer, but Grasso ended up finishing that round very strong on top, which I felt like was the deciding factor. Another fight IQ mistake from the very young Maycee Barber. But then that third round, Maycee Barber, I think, clearly won. I feel like this was kind of Barber's fight to lose, and she lost it. She played her opponent's path to victory. And I was very, we saw Izzy Martinez, who's, the wrestling coach at Jackson Winklejohn, John Jones' wrestling coach, was incorporated into this fight. I thought we were going to see an improved wrestling Maycee Barber. Instead, we saw an almost no wrestling Maycee Barber shooting some of the worst takedowns I've ever seen. Yeah. Also, I really question, she was fighting like at a distance where she couldn't get hit, but also couldn't hit Alexa Grasso. Real questionable stuff, man. And I don't know. All in all, though, bad bet on Macy Barber. What'd you think, Al? Do you have anything on this one?
Yeah, I had this is one of those ones where I was slamming my fist all week on Alexa Grasso. I just thought the value was there. I would have liked to have gotten her at that plus money when the fight opened that way, but it was just it's as someone who's come to the sport from boxing, when you see someone who throws punches like this versus someone who throws punches like this, and they almost have the same type of skills in the big realm of things, I thought Grasso was just going to be able to pick her apart. And I feel like Grasso is really, really tough, and that kind of bailed her out in a couple of these spots. And I think that she's really dangerous, a combination of, she's got a good chin. She's really precise. She's a really good counter striker. And she's so calm in there. And, because Macy Barber is trying to rip her head off, trying to, rip her to shreds. And Grasso just knew how to stay on the outside and how to just pick her spots. And yeah, like you said, when she was more the aggressor in those exchanges in the grappling, and even a little bit on the ground. But I got to say, man, you could just tell the broadcast is hyping up Macy Barber the whole time. Even after she lost, they were still hyping her up. It was just, I don't know. And the thing about Macy Barber is also, I feel like that her whole crew is just like drinking the juice a little bit too much.
Oh yeah.
I feel like when they showed her in that first round, she was dictating how the corner was going to go. Like they weren't talking to her. She was talking to them, which is never a good sign unless you're Israel Adesanya or something like that, or, a lunatic like Yoel Romero or something. Like, if you're a young fighter, you should be sitting there listening to your coach, not panicking and not like talking back or almost giving excuses, or, it just seemed like the experience level was, you could see it going into the later parts of the fight that, Macy Barber, and this is something I talked about, she gets her energy from the crowd, right? She, in a lot of her other fights, she got the energy from the crowd. You saw her, playing to the crowd in every other fight that she's ever been in. And now she just couldn't do it. And it was, the only crowd that she had was her corner, who I just feel like they're drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much. About Bucky Barber and the things that he had to say about Roxy and stuff like that after she lost. So, I feel like Macy Barber is the type of fighter that if she had a little bit of a change of scenery, that she could, she would be able to get to that potential that she has. Cause she's a savage and she's a killer. And it just looks like there's a gap between her actual ability and the ability that people think she has. So this is one of those ones where I would like to see her get a step down, right?
Sure.
She needs another style fight.
Well, she's on a 2-fight losing streak, my man. So she's definitely getting a step down from the Alexa Grassos of the world. Before we move on, man, one thing I do want to say, though, props to Alexa Grasso. Like, I thought there was going to be a distinct strength disadvantage there. Not really, man. Alexa Grasso has really filled out in the division. That was another thing I was concerned about is, Grasso initially came from, the division down, going up against a very big and very strong 125er. She showed vast improvement in her takedown defense. Stylistically, she was losing to the bigger, stronger girls. Not even the bigger, stronger, lost a fight to Carla Esparza, one of the smallest fighters on the roster in general, but, was just kind of manhandled, kind of muscled, didn't have the takedown defense. Man, she's really put the work in, and she's shored up all those areas, not that Barber really even attempted as many takedowns as she should have, but I got to give Alexa Grasso credit. I knew she had really, really good striking, but shored up a lot of those areas and really just physically seems much more complete in this division. And I think she's going to have some success, man. I think Grasso is going to be live, moving here forward. And Barber, she's going to win some fights, but damn, dude, like she just needs some more maturity, just some better fight IQ, and just, I don't know, man, but I'm definitely going to err on the side of caution as we move forward on Maycee Barber fights, just in general. I gotta put her in a new, I'm not going to call it the fade zone, but I'm going to put her in the sketch zone. I think she's going to win some fights, but I can see her losing some fights too, man. She kind of showed some weak areas still, even in this fight where she tried to convince us going into she'd had tremendous growth. Still pretty much the same person, if you ask me. What do you think, Al, before we move on to this main event?
Something that just made me laugh out loud was when she was closing in those final, I think the final like 30 seconds in that last round, she threw this ridiculous wheel kick that missed by like a foot. And it was just like, what are you doing? Like, you had her rocked and, now she's just evading you and you throw this ridiculous wheel kick. Like, you're not going to hit that. And the only thing that it's going to do is make you tired. Like, and it was just, it made me have it made me laugh out loud because it was just like, I had a bet on Grasso and I was, it looked a little bit scary there in that third round. But when she threw that wheel kick, I just couldn't help but laugh.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that's the biggest whiff on a wheel kick in UFC history, maybe by double the distance of the previous big misser. Yeah, dude, that's exactly what I'm talking about, really. That right there kind of puts the fight in a nutshell where you're like, yeah, dude, I think you'd probably. It just is what it is, Al. We should move on. Let's just finish it off on that. The Maycee Barber wheel kick pretty much sums up her performance right there. All right, the main event, UFC 258. Oh man, my man Al. We talked about this fight a little bit last week. Aren't you glad I talked you into this one, my man Kamaru Usman? Dude, this was a great freaking fight. 34 seconds into the third round, TKOs, Gilbert Burns, power jab to ground and pound. Holy crap, Al, this fight was action-packed. The training partners, the guys who knew the ins and outs, the chinks in each other's armor. Gilbert Burns comes out on fire, throwing the most heat, just clips Kamaru with some absolute bombs. I mean, Kamaru Usman never been knocked down, still never been knocked down, but man, eats a huge, tremendous shot, kind of catches himself with his hands, gets back up, looks a little slow, eats some big shots, looks to be in trouble, has me sweating, but how the tides turn. Kamaru, like I said, man, very wobbly. Props to Gilbert, man. That's what he needed to do. He needed to come out like a man possessed. Really went for it. Unfortunately, Kamaru just too damn durable, too damn good, too damn deadly. Kamaru loses the first round, right? Kind of comes on, right? Kind of gets his wits about him, starts landing some good shots. Ends up closing out the first round fairly close, considering how it played out. Gilbert Burns on his back, eating a lot of like kicks and stuff. That was not a good move by Gilbert Burns to spend the rest of the round on that. However, I would score round one for Gilbert Burns. He landed some incredible shots. Round two, things start to get even closer. Burns still comes out very hot, landing some very good shots. Still has my attention fully. But you start to see that second round, the needle, the pendulum begins to ever so slightly start leaning Kamaru's way. Boom, one big punch. Gilbert Burns goes down, has to recover. He's up. You can tell visibly hurt, shaky legs. Kamaru stays on him, continues to land damage. The round does finish, but wow, the momentum has fully swayed. Kamaru Usman just in the driver's seat. The end is near. 34 seconds into that third round, Kamaru Usman under the direction of Trevor Whitman. What does he say to him after that first round? You're a champion on the jab. The jab is what's going to take you to the W in this championship. What a prophet. What a strategist. What an incredible coach. He could not have been more right. Kamaru Usman gets the jab pumping, starts touching Gilbert. Every time Gilbert comes in, lunges with a giant power shot. You know what meets him before that shot even gets near my man Usman? Incredible sliding power jab. He's jabbing, he's touching, he's hurting him. Kamaru Usman, the wrestler, the essential Habib at 170. My man might have the nastiest jab in the game. He's jabbing from orthodox. He switches it up. He's jabbing from southpaw. I mean, he put him down with a jab with the right hand, okay? Yeah. Jumps on him, beats him like a snare drum in a Slipknot song. The fight's over, baby. Kamaru Usman, the nastiest man in the world at 170, takes out Gilbert Burns. Very emotional after the fight. I did have Usman paired up with my boy Ricky Simone to cash that parlay. Al, hit me with it. What'd you have on this one?
Oh, I had Usman by decision, man, and it was one of those things where, like, 4 minutes into that first round, I was just like, there is no way this fight goes decision. Like, you know, they were both firing for the fences. And look, I said it last week. Usman has the best ability to take a shot and to take a shot right on the dome and to just his balance is just so incredible. He's so good at staying upright, even though like he's turning this way, you know, he's playing limbo basically to stay on his feet. He's just so good at not getting knocked down and keeping his wits about him. And I've just never seen anybody recover better from getting completely rocked. And it's something that it's kind of just like one thing that I was going to mention. Usman only has 4 wins by stoppage in the UFC, and now 2 of them have been in title fights against freaking Colby Covington and now Gilbert Burns. So it's like when he was facing lesser competition, he wasn't finishing guys, and now when he's facing better competition, he's finishing guys. This guy is it's just unbelievable. And you know, minus 300 was a gift. You know, it was. I wish I would have laid it. Minus 300 was a gift. You could tell that the tide was swinging towards Usman, and then you started to see that even when Usman was getting hit, that he started to really get in that zone. And you know, he's a champ, and he's going to be a champ for a really long time. So we better get used to it. And I don't envision many people coming even close to defeating him right now. I mean, he called out Usman, or he called out Jorge. You know, I see that fight being Jorge being like a plus 280 underdog based on how it went last time. You know, so
absolutely, man. Yeah, listen, I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna ruffle some feathers. You know what? Let's do it. Let's go for it, baby. You look at the resume at this point of Kamaru Usman. He's the greatest 170-pounder in UFC history. Al, my man in Canada, what do you think of that?
No, I mean, the thing about it is Usman says that, you know, he would destroy George at his peak, and that's to no fault of George, just because the game has changed. You know, people weren't doing what they did back then. So you know, it's you're comparing Alex Ovechkin to Wayne Gretzky. You know, GSP won 12 title fights in a row. You know, like I feel like the UFC would run out of people for Usman to fight. They don't have the pockets to give him 12 guys. You know, this is now his 3rd title defense. No, this is his 2nd title defense. Right? Covington, no, his 3rd. Yes. Covington, Jorge on short notice, and now this one. So, I mean, he's got 9 more unless he's going to fight Burns in a trilogy and Jorge in a trilogy, like they're going to run out of guys to feed him because there really isn't, besides giving Wonder Boy, Vicente Luque.
That Wonder Boy's a good friggin' matchup, dude. I mean, listen, I'm not kidding you. I think Wonder Boy is gonna be the one that gives him the run for the money. Usman has showed hitability, and I'm telling you right now, if Gilbert Burns is landing on you, whoo, Wonder Boy is too. You know what I mean? That dude's striking is legit. That might be the sleeper matchup, if you ask me. Now, I know Usman, which, hey, I'll give him props from a business standpoint. Yeah, you want to get Street Jesus back in there again. Another easy payday. They did over 1 million pay-per-view buys. I mean, Kamaru Usman's not like one of these like real talkative, ultra marketable guys, even though he's absolutely one of the best guys in the UFC. And he just kind of gets slept on a little bit, a lot of love for freaking Burns this week. I think that's a good matchup, dude. Wonder Boy versus Usman. I just can't believe we don't hear that talked about. Wonder Boy, I mean, a guy who arguably beat Tyron Woodley twice, a guy who has a win over Robert Whittaker, who was the champ above a division, a guy whose only losses are the best of the best. But I don't know. That's just not really talked about. But I tell you what, Wonder Boy gets one more solid win. It's going to be a matchup we're going to have to start talking about. Yeah, I think Usman probably gets that Jorge Masvidal matchup because it sounds like we're getting Covington, Leon Edwards for Ultimate Fighter coaches, I want to say. I think that's what they're working on right now, and I think we're working on that matchup. Oh, boy.
That's
where do we go from here? Kamaru Usman, man. This dude is gnarly, and I think he's now going to get his respect that's due. People have slept on this dude's skill set. He's just that damn good, that damn durable. I mean, we're talking about a friggin' guy who's never been knocked down, never lost a UFC fight, never been taken down. I mean, yeah, everybody's streak comes to an end, right? Unless you're my boy Habib. But yeah, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here with Kamaru Usman, Al?
Yeah, like it feels like let's go back to what we were just talking about though. Like, how does he get 9 more title defenses? It's just the game is different, right? Like if he just cleared out the division, he would eventually move to 185, right? Like that's just the way the sport is now in comparison than how it was like in 2012 in like, in GSP's era where he just, there was a train of guys coming up because it was they had deep pockets then and they weren't cutting people left and right. They were giving people, even sometimes guys that didn't deserve chances, they were giving them. So and nowadays you got guys that have to kill each other to even get a title shot, have to not, guys on huge win streaks that haven't lost in like 5 or 6 years that are still outside of the conversation in this division. So it's going to be tough. And that being said, I mean, Usman has wins over Leon Edwards, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I would like to see, as a fan, I would love to see, I'm just projecting forward to just think of a world where he's going to run out of opponents. Wonder Boy, yeah. And like I said, Vicente Luque, I would like to see him fight
Wonder Boy, Vicente Luque, Leon Edwards again. You got to think, Leon Edwards, he somehow got matched up with in, I think it was both of their second UFC fights. Maybe it was, I know it was Usman's second UFC fight.
Yeah.
Might have been Edwards' debut, but I feel like he had one win previous to that. And Leon Edwards hasn't lost since. So we're talking years and years ago. They could absolutely run that one back if Edwards can probably needs to win one more fight. But my man Hamzat Chimaev, who I'm all over. But damn, some bad news. Sounds like this dude is all screwed up. from COVID and whatnot. So who knows what the deal is with Hamza anymore? That train might have just derailed without him needing to take an L in the octagon, because he's taking a big L outside the octagon. So I don't know, man. We didn't mention Michael Chiesa as well. Good point. Chiesa on a very, very solid run, but damn, dude, how Chiesa gonna beat Kamaru Usman if Usman can't be taken down? You know what I mean? Because God, let me tell you something about Michael Chiesa standing in front of Kamaru Usman. So he's gonna have to do something nobody else has been able to do, which is take this fucking guy down. Because if he don't, wow, he's gonna be suffering a similar fate to Burns. But yeah, dude, is there anything else we need to say about this before we start taking a look ahead? I just wanted to talk briefly about how Usman's boxing was mesmerized in the broadcast, even because when I remember going through the tape, and I didn't really pick up on this, but he's done that before where he kind of switches stances and rides on the jab, and it's like it's like friggin' Joe Frazier. Like it's just so it's so natural to him. For a wrestler, it's just so crazy to see. But I was gonna say, because he was doing it, he mentioned it in the Colby fight. Rogan, I was waiting for him to say that he thought that Usman hurt his hand, because Usman kept switching up his stances, and it was one of those things where he said it in the Woodley fight, he said it in the Colby fight, so I was just waiting for him to say it again. But in my mind, I'm just like, no, man, he's such a good boxer that, like, the guys are getting paid to analyze it don't even see what he's doing, because he's hiding it. Like it's like Bill Belichick type stuff. Like he's on another level, man. He's broken this thing down, and then him plus Whitman, like they're like what. Like I said, they're going to run out of people for him to beat. Like, yeah, but I tell you what, to build up the skill set with Henry Hooft and then transplant Colorado to Trevor Whitman, oof, you want to talk about some good my God, he's got like the best of two peak coaches, peak strategists, peak skill set. Not to mention he's sparring with Justin Gaethje. I mean, it's almost like he's setting the new blueprint for championship excellence, right? Because that's what do we see? We see guys, they stick around the same spot, and even in a single man's UFC career, gyms stagnate. Iron sharpens iron. We see guys. I mean, when's the last time you think somebody rolled up to Jackson Winklejohn and whipped John Jones' ass? It's never happened ever, not one day. Yeah. Since 2008, ain't nobody gone in there and had a good day against John Jones. You know what I mean? So, and I hate to say it, look at how John Jones' last few performances have gone. You know what I mean? Usman to go from Sanford, who's just absolutely on fire, one of the greatest gyms we have, and then to say, you know what, I'm not even being pushed hard enough here amongst some of the greats. Let me fly out and get some looks with Trevor Whitman, just unprecedented stuff. And how could this guy not be great going those lengths to prepare for a fight, right? Yeah, and it bothers me that people don't like him, and like I just don't get it. Like I don't get it, and I understand the beef with people love Colby Covington. Well, some people love Colby Covington, and I just don't. I feel like that's like a gimmick. Like that whole thing was like that's what prize fighting is. Yeah. But that's different from who he actually is. Absolutely, man. And I tell you what, after tonight, I better not be hearing no more snoozeman. Yeah, if that wasn't an action-packed, incredible fight, you don't know what fighting is. Exactly. You know what I mean? So phenomenal fight. All right, Al, I'll let you take this one, man. We're going to take a look ahead. What do we have coming up? Yeah, so how do we not talk about UFC 259? How do we not talk about this absolutely insane card where like the preliminary card could be a pay-per-view?
Like it's absolutely insane. And then, it all gets, it all leads up to one of the biggest fights in lightweight, middleweight, whatever way you want to shape it. Israel Adesanya is moving up to fight Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight championship, and he is like a minus 270 favorite as the challenger, which is just, this whole thing is, there's just so much to talk about. Like, besides the rest of the card, we got Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, and Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson.
Dude, I'm looking at the card right now. You ain't kidding. This thing is loaded. Okay,
it's absolutely insane.
It's a phenomenal card, and you're right. The prelims are great from top to bottom. I mean, when like Petr Yan, Aljo Sterling's like second, third fiddle, like it's gonna be a good one.
Joseph Benavidez versus Askar Askarov is gonna be on the prelims.
Oh yeah, dude. Dominic Cruz on the prelims.
Islam Makhachev.
Yeah. It's some wild stuff, dude. This is gonna be good. Wow. Oh, yeah. So Al, I'll let you start us off here. What do you think of this matchup? Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya.
I think that this spot is it's a dead under. That's what I think that this is. I think that Israel Adesanya is going to do I think he's going to do the same thing that he did to Paulo Costa, to Jan Blachowicz. I think that Jan Blachowicz is, a lot smarter of a fighter, but I think that this is a really rare thing because Izzy is moving up as the challenger, but he's doing so as the betting favorite, and he's moving up because he thinks that Jan is beatable, right? He wouldn't be doing this if he thought that it was going to be an incredibly hard fight for him, right? This is a business move because, the lightweight belt, the lightweight division in the UFC since John Jones has moved on, it's kind of up in the air, and that's not taking anything away from Jan Blachowicz and what he's done. But, the guy that he beat to get to the title shot that he got isn't even in the UFC anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's Izzy, this is a business opportunity, and he sees it as the weakest link now has the title. I'm going to take it. So we have to approach this completely differently, because if you go back and look at how he fought Romero, which will be interesting, this will be 1 year to the day that he fought Yoel Romero, the last card in the pre-COVID era of the UFC. And he said after that fight, like, I'm the champion. I'm not going to, if guys want the belt, they have to come and take it. I know how to fight these guys from the outside. I'm the best evader in the sport. I'm going to, sit outside. And if it takes a 5-round decision to defend my belt, I'm going to do it, because why am I going to go out there and put my chin out there to get knocked out by Yoel Romero? And he showed that against Costa. But now let's think about this. He's coming in as the challenger, right? So he's going to be the one. He's not going in there to defend no belt. He's going in there and he's going to close this fight. And I wouldn't be shocked if he wins it in the first round, because he's going to go out there. I don't think he's in the game plan. This is his first of many moves. And, I don't want to discount Jan Blachowicz, but I think Israel Adesanya is just, I don't think he's going to have an answer at all. And I think that he's going to blow through him. And it's just going to be a matter of when and not if. And I think, I think first or second round, like if this under the total comes out, if the total is, I see it now, the number doesn't really make sense. The total is, sitting at 2.5 rounds minus 150. Like the under at plus 110. This fight is not going to see the third round. I don't think. I think Israel Adesanya is going to finish Jan Blachowicz in spectacular fashion, and that's my read on it. I think that he's Izzy is a very, very smart fighter, and it took seeing him how to react as a champion. Now think about how he's going to react as the challenger again, right? So that's gonna change everything, I think, and I think he's going to knock out Blachowicz within 2 rounds. I think.
Sure.
What do you think?
Oh, Al, dude, this fight is crazy. Okay, let me tell you something. Adesanya, right? Trying to be the champ, trademark Conor McGregor, right? Which is a phenomenon we've seen pick up steam in the last 2 or 3 years in the UFC. It's a very marketable aspect for a guy to be able to get his picture taken with a belt over one shoulder and a belt over the other. Eventually, one of these guys is going to be like Tom Brady, 7 divisions, 7 belts, right? Not possible. So, Al, here's what's crazy about this fight. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know how to put this other than this fight will be unlike any fight in UFC history, okay?
Yeah.
Here's why. There is an aspect of this fight that will put a question mark, an exponent, a mystery box with a question mark on it into this whole fight, and it is a factor that no one's ever dealt with breaking down a UFC fight. And on this show right now today, I am gonna get to bring this to the world, okay? Because I've been wanting to say this for a long time. But here's a factor I don't see anyone talking about as of yet, and I'm going to open Pandora's box right now for everybody. Israel Adesanya, the 185-pound champion of the world, okay? We've seen him come in multiple times weighing in at 183 and 184 pounds. Now, 184 point whatever pounds, that's nothing shocking. But let me tell you something. Israel Adesanya weighing in at 183 pounds for a 185-pound title fight does not mean Israel Adesanya weighs 205, 210 pounds and cuts weight, dehydrates himself down to 185 and accidentally miscalculated and overshot and cut an extra pound or two of water weight. When Israel Adesanya weighs in at 183 pounds for a 185-pound title fight, that means Israel Adesanya cuts no weight.
Yeah.
And Israel Adesanya right now, today, wherever he is in New Zealand, I bet the man weighs 183 pounds, okay? This is a guy who is not cutting weight to make middleweight, okay? This is a guy now moving up to a division 20 pounds heavier, 205, going up against a guy, Jan Blachowicz, who would fight comfortably at heavyweight, okay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, Jan Blachowicz cuts to 205. Jan Blachowicz on fight night weighs at minimum 225 pounds, maybe 230, okay? Jan Blachowicz going into a fight camp probably weighs 250 pounds, okay? What I'm saying is you're going to see Israel Adesanya get on the scale for this championship fight, and I bet this guy's going to weigh 190 pounds tops at a fight at 205. And like I said, Jan Blachowicz is going to show up to this fight weighing 225 pounds minimum. I'm going to guarantee it, okay? We're never going to see a title fight where a guy isn't up to that division's weight, right? Theoretically, it's always been possible, but it's always been guys like a Conor McGregor who's killing himself to get to 145, who now cuts slightly less weight to make 155, right? But is still cutting weight to get there, right? And then is fighting pretty much naturally when he's up at 170. He weighed in like 168, right, for his fights at welterweight. But Adesanya is going to fight a fight for gold and not even weigh up to that weight limit. He's outright come out and said, I'm not changing physically who I am. I'm not putting on weight. I'm not changing anything. I'm just going to go into this fight as me, which makes sense because, he doesn't want to put his body through adding all this muscle to fight a light heavyweight fight and then have to drop that muscle to cut down to 185 again, right?
Exactly.
He plans on having a future at 185. So what I'm saying is we're talking about a fight that's going to go off at light heavyweight. We've seen big weight discrepancies at heavyweight. We've had fights where, like Fedor, Dan Henderson actually had to drink water to make 206 to be eligible to fight Fedor. And he knocked him out. You know what I mean? Now, this is a long time ago in a bygone era when things were just totally different and in a totally different organization. But as far as the UFC goes, we're never going to have a challenger come in this straight up underweight to a fighting a big light heavyweight who's a big, powerful guy. Another factor, Jan Blachowicz, incredible reach. If a guy like Kelvin Gastelum, an undersized guy, has as much success touching Izzy with what, 15, 20 inches less reach than what Jan Blachowicz is going to have, it's an interesting factor. But the difference is, my man Al, the difference is speed kills, okay? Adesanya is going to be so much faster than Blachowicz. He's going to be a step ahead. All he really is going to have to do, avoid that big Polish power. But if Jan Blachowicz was smart, he uses that size, that strength, that muscle, and he pushes Izzy up against the fence. He makes this a dirty, grinding fight. But guess what? That's been the game plan all along, how to beat Izzy. Somehow this guy hypnotizes, mind games every fighter who's ever been in there with him into standing toe-to-toe and trading strikes with, yet again, I'm going to say it one more time, the greatest striker in UFC history. This man went in there against a Olympic silver medalist and that in Olympic wrestling, and the man never shot on him one time. What kind of spell does Israel Adesanya cast on these guys when he looks into their eyes that night before the fight? I don't know, but it makes everyone fight the strategically dumbest fight possible for the city kickboxing made. Israel Adesanya, I'm with you, Al. I think Israel's going to land the better shots. He's going to land more shots. He's going to be the sharper striker. He's going to take advantage of Jan Blachowicz. If he can avoid the KO power of being finished by Jan Blachowicz, and again, why is Jan Blachowicz going to be the guy that goes out there and wrestles him? I don't think he's going to. I think Jan's going to more than oblige. Adesanya style is going to stand toe to toe.
Yeah, exactly.
And is not going to go out there and do. If I were making the game plan for Jan Blachowicz, it's going to be making it dirty, using some cage, working for some takedowns. I don't see it happening. I think Izzy outpoints him. I think a KO is even on the table. Because we are talking about Israel Adesanya, a guy who has fought up divisions, and from a kickboxing standpoint, has even fought heavyweight. So he's not getting totally out of water. And yeah, I just think Izzy's better, and I see him winning the fight. Yeah, I think a finish is absolutely in the books. I got Israel Adesanya winning by KO, TKO at some point, maybe late second, third round. What do you think, Al?
Yeah, like this seems, like you said, and you brought up an excellent point. We've never seen this, right? Like in the UFC. This is a normal thing in kickboxing where he comes from. Like we see this all the time. Guys fighting with 40-pound discrepancy between them because one of them is so, and even Israel Adesanya, that he did it. He fought at heavyweight because he knew that he would be able to knock out or to, at least be able to stand with these heavyweights because, he believes that he's just a better fighter. It doesn't matter about the power. It matters about his ability to evade and use your power against you, right? And that's what's got him to the game. And he's done that pretty much every single time except for that one Yoel Romero fight. And then, he fought like a dog. And if you go back and look in comparison, he is not that same fighter that when he fought Calvin Gastelum. He is so much better. He is so much better than he was. Go back and look at the tape, like compare that to how he fought Costa. Like he is just so much better. And like you said, Jan Blachowicz is, Polish power. There's nothing that's going to make him go out there and wrestle. He wants to be the guy that knocks him out. And I feel like that's why Izzy has chosen this opportunity. He's playing this like a McGregor, right? Like he's handpicking this opponent because he's going to take him out. And, it's a business opportunity because, he sees something in him that he can easily, he can easily take advantage of this. And I there's no reason for us not to believe him. He's gone in there in professional fights against guys much heavier than him and has beat them. The guy that he got knocked out by weighs less than him. What's his name? Alex Pereira. He's like a 180. That guy could have fought at lightweight in glory. And he knocked out Izzy. So like he's not afraid of bigger guys. He knows how to evade these guys and use their power against them, which is what he did to Costa. And he just turns them into his strikes, and he just plays this game with them. And I think that's what he's going to do with Jan. And I think I'm looking right now. Fight goes the distance. No is minus 185. That's insanity. I'm going to bet that as soon as we're done here. Like, that's ridiculous. There's no way this fight goes the distance. There's no way. It's not happening. Izzy is either going to put on an absolute masterpiece or, like you said, the power of Jan. It's just, the law of averages. He's eventually going to hit the button. But I don't think it happens because Izzy's just that good. He's, like you said, the best. He is the best striker in history of the UFC. So, and I think all the power to Jan. He's just not even close. If they get into a stand-up battle, it's just going to be a matter of when and not if, and what round. And it would take a miracle for Jan to win this fight, and it's that simple. And I think that this is the start of something insane if Israel Adesanya wins this light heavyweight championship, because he could go and fight for the heavyweight championship after this. Who knows?
That's just where I was leading this into, right? Because first off, let me just address this one factoid, right? Which is not even a factoid. It's just something I got to put out there. If you told me in 2019 Jan Blachowicz would finish 2020 as the UFC light heavyweight champion, I would have to. I just wouldn't believe it. I would think you were on potent hallucinogenics. This is a guy that I've seen lose to some dudes that just straight up aren't that good. But it is what it is. Look at it was kind of the perfect storm, just 2020 in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Like when they showed like a year in review at New Year's Eve, like how weird and bad 2020's been, they should show like Jan Blachowicz holding up John Jones's belt. You know what I mean? Like it's just so funky, man. I still am getting used to it. First off, I didn't think he'd beat Dominic Reyes. Goes out there, just beats the dog shit out of Dominic Reyes. I'm still surprised by that. And just even some of the fights. This is a guy who went to split decision in 2019 with Jacare Souza at 205. What are we talking about here? Like, this is just still crazy to me, man. I don't see Jan Blachowicz being a long-reigning champion. Now, don't get me wrong. It would be pretty Jan Blachowicz-y to beat Israel Adesanya.
Oh my God.
But I don't know, man. I don't see it happening. I think, yeah, man. I think we're looking at, is Adesanya going to be our first champ? Because if he beats Blachowicz, this has been a long thought out process.
Yeah.
The entire uprise of Israel Adesanya, there's always been this side story of him getting under John Jones' skin and irritating John Jones and building up to this inevitable matchup. And I mean, I guess we just need to touch on, is John Jones running from Israel Adesanya? Is John Jones moving up to the slower, more plodding heavyweights of the world to avoid that crisp, lightning, incredible striking of an Israel Adesanya? I don't know, man. I'm not going to say he's running when you have a monster like Francis Ngannou waiting in the wings, but things have got so interesting, man, and this is just so crazy nowadays. Back when I first got into this sport, the thought of dudes moving around weight divisions, like outside of like BJ Penn, like that just wasn't a thing. And now it's just like the new deal, man. I get one belt, defend it a couple times, I clean these suckers out. Let's get me another one. You know what I mean? But yeah, it should be a great fight, dude. But wow, what an incredibly stacked card. UFC 259. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up, Al?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about a little bit more about Jan Blachowicz. Do you remember? So I think it was right after after Jones beat Reyes, right? And then the fight was Corey Anderson versus Jan Blachowicz for that number one contender fight. And I think it was a fight card in Albuquerque where Blachowicz knocked out Corey Anderson in like the second round. And that's when Blachowicz and John Jones had that thing that was never resolved because, like, the last time we heard from him in that resolve, he was vacating the belt, which in turn gave him the chance to fight for the vacant belt, which he won you can't call it a fluke because it wasn't a fluke. It was just one of those weird performances where Reyes just looked absolutely terrible and Jan just looked amazing, right? So there's just this whole weird path that has gotten Jan to where he is right now. And I think that Israel Adesanya is just looking at this with dollar signs, and he's just going, there's something I can take this guy easily. And this opportunity is once in a lifetime because this is a title that's been held by John Jones, so it just seems like this is a business plan that they're on here. And I think, this could be the UFC 259 could be the start of like a whole new era of the UFC, because we're talking about this thing about a guy fighting somebody that he knows that is much bigger than him just because of his confidence and his ability to evade that person. That's something that we see in combat sports a lot, but just not in MMA. But in kickboxing and even like in Japanese MMA, you'll see like special bouts where it's like an MMA fighter will fight a kickboxer in kickboxing rules and stuff like that. The UFC will never do that, but what we will get is these special types of matchups like this. And this is what we need, right? This is what we need to make it evolve even more, where we can get a guy who's just so talented that, what if Stipe beats Ngannou? What if we had Izzy versus Stipe or Izzy versus Ngannou?
I was just thinking that.
This is, and he would do it, he would do it. That Israel Adesanya is the future of this sport. And it's that simple. And anybody who denies it, the only person who can is really Francis Ngannou. And he's going to have a belt around his shoulder in about 2 months' time. So things are going to change. Things are changing rapidly, right? This is going to be the next month and a half in this sport is going to change things, change the whole outlook of, all these divisions are going to finally start moving from this stagnation, and it's just going to, dollar signs are going to roll in because, Izzy gets the money that Conor, Izzy gets the type of coverage that Conor used to get, right? And there's now, how there used to be nothing like a McGregor fight, there's nothing like a Israel Adesanya fight. That the Costa fight was huge, and it wasn't what we expected. And I don't think this is going to be the same what we expect either. I think he's going to go out there and just shut Jan's lights out, and this will be the beginning of the next chapter for him. And if I'm wrong, it'll be incredible to see him get knocked out. But that's the path that the UFC is putting him on, and I think it's a good one. And I think the sky is literally the limit for this kid. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The greatest striker in UFC history, if not MMA history. So yeah, man, crazy.
Definitely. Well, there's UFC 258. Man, I can't believe we're just knocking these UFCs out one after the other, baby. And we got another one next week. Curtis Blades going up against Derek Lewis. Heavyweight tilt. Pretty good matchup. Not a bad card, man. Some people say better than this week's. But let's wrap this one up, Al. I'm Bleed. You can check me out right here on YouTube on my channel. Yeah, head over, subscribe. Did pretty good tonight overall as far as betting goes. Not the best, but what are you going to do? Man, I tell you what, Al, the one thing I do need to mention, there were literally 3 bets I had locked in this week. We had some fights scrapped. Man, I missed out on 3 totally juicy spots that I swear I was going to cash on all of them. It is what it is. We'll get those matchups hopefully further down the road. Is there anything you want to say, Al, before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I completely forgot, but I'm super stoked on Tom Aspinall, Andrei Arlovsky next week. That's my main event. So I'm super stoked on that.
Yeah, should definitely be a good one, man. I like it. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, another UFC in the books. What do you know? We got to get cracking on that next one, baby. Yeah. We got to make this money. We got to get it done. Thank you guys for watching. See everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for getting in, talking on some good points. Yeah, from a man, Al Mac, I am Bleed. Odds.com, Odds HQ, baby. We'll catch you guys after next week's card. We are out of here.